The sea turtles are born on land. The eggs are hatched and they are born on land and they are buried beneath the sand by the mother. The mother leaves after they gestate and they finally break out of the shell. The first thing, without any training, any background, any experience, or anybody to guide them, the first thing they do is turn to the water. Because instinctively they know that they were created to be in the water. And all of a sudden my mind blew wide open because suddenly I realized that I was sitting between intellect and instinct. Intellect could describe it, explain it, enunciate it, depict it, but it couldn't find it. It could explain it, but only instincts could find it.
What is up, YouTube? Live via satellite here, and today we are talking Kingdom, manga chapter 545. Now, this chapter was yet another amazing chapter of Kingdom. I mean, if you're a Shin fan, in any sense of the word, you had to be ecstatic by the end of this chapter. And Kyoukai was no slouch in this chapter either. The stuff she does doesn't really shock me as much because you kind of expect awesomeness from Kyoukai. But if you're a fan of 10, I'm sorry to say you were probably left disappointed this chapter, and you're probably just looking forward to next week. You want to put this chapter behind you, you want to get it in your rear view mirror, you just want to move on. But don't worry, we're going to try to talk you off the ledge today, kind of hold your hand through this. I'm even going to be putting together a little support group for you guys. But anyway, guys, Kingdom has been on a roll lately, and to be honest, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. And I really cannot wait to talk to you guys about this chapter, and there is no better place to start than in the beginning.
Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, yeah.
So the chapter picks up right where we left off last chapter. We get the 10,000 men of the Gyun army facing off against the 8,000 men of the Shin unit, with Shoshui leading the charge. Then we get to see Shosha putting on some moves. I mean, he's blocking people, stabbing people, dipping to the left, dipping to the right. I mean, it's clear to me that this man has mastered the nuances of Twister. And as he's wrapping things up, more reinforcements arrive that he would have preferred to have sooner. But the veterans seem to be a little uneasy about these Zhao troops, because even though the rookies are unaware, mainly because it's their first battle, this is actually the strongest infantry the Shin unit has ever faced. And this doesn't just go for the infantry. We see that Garo and his cavalry unit are also struggling with these elite troops, to the point he decides it's best to fall back. Seeing all this, Kyoukai realizes that the Zhao have the upper hand. Her men seem to think it's because they're so evenly matched with their cavalry and infantries that the deciding factor will come down to the 2,000 man advantage that the Zhao soldiers have. But Kyoukai says not necessarily, because when small and mid-sized squads are evenly matched up like this, it usually comes down to how the soldiers are utilized, in particular, the strategy and tactics that are employed. Hearing this, one of our officers thinks, well, they should have this in the bag, being as they have 10 on their side. But unfortunately, Kyoukai has to be the one to let them in on the hard reality that they've been one step behind everywhere she's looked for a while now. It's hard for these guys to rationalize that Gyeoun could possibly be better than 10 at strategy, but the truth is usually a hard pill to swallow.
What really happened on that Thursday here at Augusta High School that led to Chris Wood's death? The fuck is that? Shit!
But Kyoukai does notice, strangely enough, that one unit on the battlefield doesn't appear to be losing, and that's the unit that Shin is personally leading. Then Kyoukai suddenly has this aha moment about what Gyeoun could possibly be up to. And then we see Shin wrecking people with the glaive, and he actually says that he's kind of getting used to it now, even though it's still pretty heavy. Then we see a message from HQ arriving for Shin, asking for him to go and support Dene because he has a bunch of troops flocking his way. But Shin says it's an obvious trap, Whoever goes to assist Dene is just going to be ambushed. And he also states that he told Ten to leave the left edge alone, but she still sent Harold's unit over there and they wound up getting their asses kicked. And he complains that Ten is getting outplayed way too much, and he doesn't seem to understand why she can't notice that Gyo-eun is just feeling around in order to make one huge move. And as he's saying that, Kyoukai is spotted heading his way. And I really enjoyed the scene with Shin, because not only did we get confirmation that he's getting used to Oki's glaive, we also got to see his instincts at work. And what surprised me about this was he doesn't seem to have a narrow view where he can only make like one move at a time. It seems like he has a broader view of the battlefield where he can even see Gyo-eun's endgame. Back over at Shin's HQ, there seems to be absolutely nothing going right. Ten is being bombarded with report after report, and absolutely none of it is good. Units are being split up, pushed back, pincered, and even disappearing. It's so bad that even one of Ten's surprise attacks were intercepted. And that is the epitome of a letdown. It's pretty bad when the surpriser is the one getting surprised.
Tyrone?
Are you going trick-or-treating?
No, probably.
And in the midst of all this commotion, Ten just calls timeout. She just needs a second to think. And Ten realizes no matter what she does, she can't seem to get the upper hand. It's almost as if he can see directly through all of her intentions. And on the other hand, she's unable to read anything that Gyo-eun's thinking. And if she can't read the moves, then she's unable to counter, and her men are just being one-sidedly killed. Speaking of which, a report comes in that Riken has just been slain. And then Ten sees that that was what Gyo-eun was aiming for, and that he's just making small little adjustments, but she can't read these adjustments at all. And she wonders to herself just what is this man that she's going up against. Then we move over to Jigaryu, who's actually watching this one-sided affair from the other side of the battlefield, and he says it's as he expected of Gyo-eun. And we find out here that even though Ten has considerable talent, the more talented you are as a strategist, the deeper you are entrapped by Gyo-eun's tactics. And Jigaryu states that even though him and Gyo-eun were meticulously trained by Rinsojo in all types of strategies, Gyo-eun's strength lies elsewhere. Back over at Gyo-eun, we get a sneak peek into his strategical mindset, and we get to see that he's sending one unit in diagonally just to cause chaos so that another unit can come in and clean up the mess. Back over at Shin's HQ, we see that Ten has fallen for this ploy, hook, line, and sinker. She's actually about to send Sugen to join up with Shosa because she thinks that maybe the enemy may be aiming for Sugen's flank, but she really has no idea. Out of nowhere, Shin and Kyoukai arrive, letting Ten know that's not it. And Ten's shocked to see Shin and Kyoukai back at the HQ. She can't believe they left their positions, especially considering the situation that they were in. But Kyoukai quickly points out that's why she brought Shin here, which puzzles Ten. But Shin immediately assesses the situation, letting Ten know that the diagonal troops that she was worried about can be ignored and that the real attack will be the one that moves next.
What you doing, Mom?
But Ten thinks that ignoring those troops would leave Sugen in danger and that Shin's just talking nonsense. But then a report comes in confirming Shin's first prediction, because the initial infantry didn't attack anyone, they just passed through the formation. But then Shin also predicts another attack that'll occur on her left side, and that if they were to send 100 cavalry, they'd probably be able to drive them off. And not soon after, we get another report confirming this prediction. Ten and her men cannot believe what they're witnessing right now. It's one of them things that you can't quite wrap your head around. And Ten asks Shin, how does he know all this? And Shin tells her it's just what his gut instincts are telling him. And just hearing the word instincts, it all suddenly clicks for Ten. She realizes that that's what it's been the whole time, and that these moves that Gyo-eun was making were not based on logic at all. And Kyoukai lets her know she's exactly right. This is why somebody like her was unable to grasp his way of thinking the entire time. Because Gyo-eun is an instinctual general. This is particularly troublesome because not only can he use instincts, but he can also use proper tactics since he was the #1 pupil of Rinsojo. And Kyoukai points out the fact that this is a distinct disadvantage for Ten, and that they really don't have the time to sit around for her to come up with a counter. And we see that Ten obviously didn't know how critical the situation was, but then Shin lets her know that Gyo-eun's been probing and starting small fires here and there, and that if they don't do something soon, a huge flame will break out and loads of men will die. And looking at Ten and her men's faces, you can tell that Shin looks like he's speaking a completely different language to them.
Did you know that there are over 5 languages in this world? We don't need all these languages, people.
But Ten asks, what are we meant to do? You just said we don't have any time. And Shin looks at everyone in great disbelief, wondering if they've all forgotten that Quinn once had an instinctual great general that was capable of even driving Raboku into a corner, and that he himself has inherited these same qualities. And Ten can't believe exactly what she's hearing, but Kyoukai seconds this motion by saying she's actually seen that Shin is the only one capable of keeping up with Gyun's moves, and that it's time for them to match up one instinctual type for another, and that they must immediately let Shin take full command of their entire forces. And that was the chapter in a nutshell, guys. And this is a chapter that I would think a lot of Shin fans have been waiting on. It's looking like he's finally unlocked his instinctual abilities, and these abilities have always been there. We've seen them surface from time to time, but after this chapter, it now seems like something that he's going to be able to utilize more freely. And it makes perfect sense because both Moten and Ohan already had similar awakenings, and it wasn't going to be long before Shin had his turn to shine. But this appears to be a major upgrade for Shin, because watching him predict all of Gyun's moves and seeing him look like he's ready to actually take command from the HQ is going to have such a different vibe to it. And I can actually see him staying in HQ for a chapter or two, trying not to just counter Gyun, but also setting his own little fires throughout Gyun's army, where he can probe for a weakness, and then just like the Duke, when he finds a spark or a weakness in Gyun's army, him then setting out and leading a charge into the heart of the battle. And I definitely have to give Kyoukai props this chapter, because Kyoukai was like the middleman in this chapter. She was the only one who was able to make sense of the situation, and she was the one who had to get Shin and Ten on the same page and let them know how things needed to be moving forward. And not only that, she was the first one to discover what type of general Gyun was. And by moving so fast, she probably saved a good chunk of the high Shin unit from winding up getting caught in whatever Gyun's big play was going to be. But moving over to 10, man, she had it rough this chapter, and a lot of stuff wasn't her fault. But the one thing you can fault her for was not knowing what type of general she was dealing with. But I'm going to chalk that up to her age and experience and just being overall flustered in the situation she was in. And I think if she was just a little bit more calm, she probably would have figured this out a bit sooner, which may have given her a little more time to adjust. But in the grand scheme of things, it really didn't matter, because as we found out way back at the docking plains, an instinctual general like Dukyo was unable to understand the strategical warfare of Gokai, and Gokai with his strategical mindset was unable to understand Dukyo's instincts. And this was all laid out for us by Oki, and what's interesting here is that when Oki was talking about the Duke seeing war as a blazing fire, you can see that people don't understand what he's talking about. Just like when Shin was talking to Ten and Herman about the fire, they definitely couldn't comprehend what Shin was talking about. But I think even though Ten isn't a match for Gyun's instincts, he's still very well versed in normal strategy as well. So I think there's going to come a point where Ten will still be utilized during this battle, especially when Shin leaves the HQ to personally lead a charge. I can see Ten definitely getting some sort of moment of redemption either then or at some point. But yeah, that's about it, guys. I just can't wait to see what happens next week. And I'm just ready to see what it looks like with Shin taking command again. I mean, the last time he took the helm, they had a nice little string of L's before Ten arrived. So I'm sure even if some of the men in the unit find out that Shin's giving out the orders, they may feel a little bit nervous. But anyway, guys, that about does it for this week's review. Let me know what you guys thought about the chapter in the comments section below. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to share, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.